is in need. We've had to disband a crime suppression unit, which was a 4 or 5 man unit that was going around and hitting hot spots in crime. They had to disband them to put them back on patrol. We're down 10 officers right now. A lot of it has to do with wage and wage of the area. It takes about 3 years to get a cadet out of the training and hire them on to the police department, to actually have them be a seasoned officer, what it takes to write the reports and what it takes to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, to not only, to make sure that the tickets stick or the charges stick or however it goes in the legal system, because being a police officer is different. But right now in our area we're having, there's a wage disparity, and we're getting guys that are coming in 1 and 2 and 3 years, and they're leaving and going to the next city over for $3 more an hour. But right now, if you take a look, we're down 10 officers on our staff right now. We need to hire and put on patrol. And we had another officer who, a detective in Port Orange, who, and I'll make this out there, the spaghetti dinner for a fundraiser, was in a car crash, hit by a car on his motorcycle. His wife was killed, but he's a Port Orange detective. Keep him in your prayers if you would. But we're down on manpower, and we need to stabilize it.
Mr. Novel.
I don't believe we're doing anything wrong when it comes to our police department. I am proud of the Port Orange Police Department. They do a fine job. So I think the question was prefaced with, what are we doing wrong? I don't acknowledge that we're doing anything wrong with policing in Port Orange. It's a professional group of officers that are doing a wonderful job, to my knowledge.
Well, Mr. Novel, the second part of the question is, what exactly would you improve? Because you do list public safety as one of your top campaign issues. So what exactly would you like to do as mayor about public safety?
First of all, I'm not aware that I've listed public safety as a top priority. You have my card.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, I believe everybody in the audience here today probably has my card. I proudly announce all of my policies. I don't wait for people to ask me for my policy. I'm letting you know what my policy is. But again, we just need to keep up what we have right now, which is a wonderful course.
Thank you. Councilman Brown.
I think that's exactly what got us into trouble, is stagnation. When things are going well, you say, oh, things are going well and we're okay. Things are going well in Port Orange. We do have the 7th safest city in the state of Florida because of what is going right. But without looking forward, it was also mentioned that the staffing issues that we have, those are real problems that we need to address. The City Council in recent labor negotiations has put into the budget, because of those negotiations, another $750,000 to be spent on our officers over the next 2 years because of what we came out of in those negotiations. And that moves us up into the upper third of municipalities in this county. I don't need to be the highest paying. I do need to be competitive, and I do need to reward these people for a job well done. I do need to be able to recruit. And if the city down the road is paying a little bit more to start than us, it's going to make it a little bit tougher. So we need to be competitive. So wages certainly are part of that. I'm proud of what we did out of those negotiations. I also believe that we are not done. Other things that we need to do, we need more proactive policing in our neighborhoods. Proactive policing means that we're involved, our officers are involved in neighborhoods. And I think we'll see even more of that. We've recently hired a new police chief who is a big believer in this. And the other thing is often forgotten, is that we have one of the oldest and one of the very best volunteers in police services, with people who volunteer hundreds of hours of service to this community every year to help our police department maintains itself at its finest levels. Now, let's also not forget public safety also includes our fire department. So those things that we've talked about and making sure that we take care of our people who go out and take care of you has got to be done.
Thank you. Councilmember Burnett, the next question is for you. Going around the city of Port Orange, I've seen far more of your opponents' yard signs than I have of yours. Are you having trouble garnering support? And if so, why do you think that is?
I'd have to say no, because if you take a look at yard signs, that's one indicator of support. I was last to the party with yard signs because I really didn't want to put them out this early. I consider them, after a while, kind of be background noise and not something that I consider too attractive. I really wanted to do those in the last 60 days of the campaign. In the last couple of weeks, several hundred of my yard signs have gotten out because of my opponents. That's competition. Sometimes you're a leader, sometimes you're a follower, but you don't sit on your hands. And as far as me having trouble garnering support, I think if you take a look at my campaign finance reports versus what my opponents have been able to do, I think you'll see that I have very strong support in the city.
Mr. Green, the next question is for you. The issues section of your platform page on your website seems to be lacking in specific policy proposals. Do you see this as a problem, and do you intend to make specific and executable proposals so that the citizens and the voters of Port Orange can assess your plans?
Is that something I can hear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Knopfel, on your website you state that you would support contracting out most city services to private companies. Could you elaborate on why you think the private sector could do better for the city of Port Orange than the city government?
I guess I believe that because I believe in the private enterprise system. That's what got this country to where it is, not the government sector. The government sector is woefully inefficient relative to the private sector in many areas. And those areas that I would advocate privatization, it is certainly the case. A public works director a year or two ago gave some numbers regarding cutting grass by the acre. And I think she came up with like $155 an acre for the city to cut grass. The private sector will do it for $60 an acre. That's an efficiency and do a better job. That's an efficiency that I want to see passed on to Port Orange taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Knopfel.
The next question is for all three candidates. An issue has been raised regarding the city manager's decision to charge citizens for the city's errors in water bills. It's been called by some an ex post facto decision, which is clearly prohibited by the Constitution. What is your stance on the issue, and do you agree with that? Do you agree with that characterization? I'm going to start with Mr. Knopfel.
I certainly agree with that characterization because I was the one that made that issue known. Council voted unanimously to back charge residents for city errors. I didn't agree with that. I said so before council. I was caught up in that myself with roughly a $700 back charge. It is unfair, it was unfair, and council ultimately came to realize it was unfair once a bit of citizen activist pressure was brought to bear. And in terms of it being ex post facto, you know, the Constitution is a wonderful document. It was written so that you in the audience and me standing right here and the moderator sitting there can understand it. It's not written in legalese. It's pretty clear when it says no post ex facto laws shall be passed. But yet this is exactly what the Port Orange Council did here 2 or 3 months ago. Were they asleep at the switch? I don't know. But they sure as heck passed it. And it is sure as heck the wrong thing to do. Penalize citizens for city staff errors. But where did some of those errors come from? They come from an insanely complicated water billing policy. We've cut the number of rates, and yet we still have over 400 rates. That is beyond the comprehension of anybody's mind. No one can sit down and determine what a water rate should be without running it through the computer, and that's crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Mount. Mr. Green?
No, I don't agree with coming back and back charging the citizens, and I think the council realized that. It's the cost of doing business. If I, in the construction business, if I don't put enough shingles on the roof, I can't go to the owner and say I need more shingles. I have to look at those shingles, I have to pay for them. It's the cost of doing business, and I think the council made the correct decision in not back charging.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Councilman Knopfel, as you were on council, Councilman, as you were on council when this decision was made, what is your stance on it?
Well, initially, I think what you got to do is take a look at what is a city error. City error doesn't mean that I'm necessarily charging you for something you didn't use. But if you've enriched yourself, in Mr. Green's business, that's a great example of the cost of doing business. Yeah, I should be able to look back a little bit. If I'm looking back a few months and you've enriched yourself, in this case, you're doing it on the backs of other ratepayers and other taxpayers who are paying to maintain a system that you're utilizing and not paying for. So that in itself is unfair as well. So I have to take a look at that and balance it. This is not a static situation. The question was static, but the situation is not. Because council has given the manager direction to go back and take a look at what we can do to review and revise this policy. I don't want somebody being able to go on, I'm tricking the city, I'm stealing water, so to speak. It can be unscrupulous, it can be unintentional. But when it happens, it's happening on the backs of the other taxpayers and ratepayers who are paying for that. So there has to be a level of fairness. And at some point, yeah, you have to say it is the cost of doing business. And I think that's why it's not a static situation and why we're trying to figure that out. I don't think we should be looking back years and years and years. Now, staff, once there's an ordinance in place, has to follow that, and they can't say, well, this is a problem, and we're not going to follow it. They need to come back to council, which they have, and said it's not working the way it's supposed to. We've heard from our residents it's not working the way it's supposed to. But we have to be fair to all the taxpayers and all the ratepayers. And that's not just the individuals who benefited from it. And some of them have enriched themselves unjustly and do know about it.
Thank you, Mr. Green, in that answer, your name was invoked. Would you like to respond?
No.
All right.
This next question is for all three candidates. Do you think that the Port Orange government is wasteful in its spending? If so, what specific cuts would you make? Mr. Green, you have the floor first.
No, I don't. And again, I'm sure there's room for little things here and there, but we've come to a quality of life in Port Orange. We've come to a level of service in Port Orange. And I think that our residents are comfortable with what they're given in our parks and our rec and the amenities that Port Orange provides. Is there places to be cut? I'm sure you could dissect every budget as my opponent does. But at the same token we've come to a level of service and a quality of life in Port Orange that I think that we all like.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Councilman Burnett?
That's a very interesting question because I mentioned before, a lot of the reasons where we did run into trouble is because we had static situations, things were going good, and we don't look to improve. You should always have systems of continuous improvement in every corporation, in every business that's successful. Otherwise, you fall flat on your face after a while. Coca-Cola, one of the largest and most successful companies in the world, they ran into a situation about 20 years ago when they introduced Coke 2. And it was going to be the answer to everything. And when they realized their mistake, they kept going on with Coke 2 because they fooled themselves into believing, well, this is going to work simply because we've done it. No, you always have to have systems of continuous improvement in any organization of any size if it's going to continue to prosper and grow into the next, and now into the further in the 21st century. I've heard from taxpayers that would say, hey, The quality of life here is important to me. This is a safe city. I will pay what I need to as long as it's fair. And that's great. I love that because that means they're invested. Yet we have one of our millage rates are among the lowest third in the county. I'm also aware that I have to balance that against the taxpayer who's on a fixed income, who is retired, has fixed costs. Social Security did not get a raise this year. And we have to balance the needs between all of our citizens. So it's a balancing act, which we always have to run. And we always have to have systems of continuous improvement in place, always and everywhere, if we're going to evolve as an organization.
Thank you, Councilman Burnett. Mr. Noctel?
Absolutely, there's wastage in Port Orange government. I'm going to give you 3 examples, but I really don't want you to take issue with the employees. Just direct your wrath up a couple of levels to the supervisors and the deputy directors. I was caught up in this back billing citizens for staff errors, and earlier it was alluded to that someone is making out like a bandit. Here's how I was tagged. When my building was built, a 2-inch meter was put in, but yet in the counting system they logged it as a 1-inch meter. Over the 14 years I've been there, I have paid for every God-blessed gallon of water that came through that meter. But the rub is, remember those 400 different rates? Port Orange charges more for a glass of water that comes through a 2-inch meter than what comes through a 1-inch meter. Well, in the course of finding that out, I had my meter changed. I had two new public utilities trucks show up at my shop. You could see your face in the side, the polishing was so great. I had 4 men hang around from 8 o'clock in the morning till just about noon to take out the old meter and put in the city side of the new meter. 2 men, 4 hours. I've got it on video. Bill Schaefer Plumbing came in his ratty old pickup with his hound dog on the passenger seat and hooked up my side of the meter in 15 minutes. Now that's inefficiency. I have seen public works crews cutting grass. 2 people sitting on the edge of the tongue of the trailer, and 1 guy on the trailer going round and round a retention pond. That's wastage. And yesterday morning we had a magistrate's hearing. We had 1 code enforcement person prosecuting. We had 2 in the audience. We had an engineer.
Thank you, Mr.
We had a
Noctel.
building official. What were they doing other than sitting and
Mr.
observing
Noctel,
on the
thank
taxpayer
you.
nickel? Thank you.
The next question is for all 3 candidates. The City Council has been accused of purposefully complicating the budget process as to disguise discrepancies and tax increases. Do you agree with these grievances, and are you open to simplifying the process? We'll go to Mr. Noctel first.
The answer is absolutely yes. I am for simplifying the process. There are many different kinds of budgets that are available to us. What Port Orange uses is a program budget. We lose track of what's inside that program number. When this year's budget calendar came up, I commented on that like I frequently do. I said, we need to be doing a line item budget. Everybody on council agreed, and then everybody on council turned right around and voted for the resolution, which was for a program budget. Last year, 9/30/15 year, the excess of revenue over expenses in the general fund is just over $3 million. And we were voted a tax increase. With a $3 million surplus, why would anybody in their right mind have voted us a tax increase last year? Well, I will tell you why. Our accounting, our budgeting process is so atrocious. When these guys passed the budget, I'm sure they had no idea what the final surplus was going to work out to be. So the answer is yes, I am in favor of a line item budget. Let me mention one other thing, and this comes back to Councilman Burnett, so he can get a chance to respond. The first year on council, he rightly pointed out that part of our budgeting should include some balance sheet considerations. Well, we didn't have it his first year on the budget, on council, and we don't now have it this year on council. So after nearly 6 years, why haven't we moved our budgeting process off square one? That would be my question. I would certainly advocate for a complete change in our budgeting methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knopfler. Councilman Burnett, you have 30 seconds to respond because your name was invoked in the normal 2 minutes to answer the question.
Okay, I will respond to that. First of all, Ted doesn't see a balance sheet somewhere, then I'm sorry, you're not paying attention. It's there. I've seen it. I've seen it regularly. It doesn't come out every month. But you know what? If Ted, you got to throw things around like council is, the question was, is council purposely complicating the budget? Purposefully complicating a budget? And you're accusing us and saying that the answer to that is yes. I have to take great umbrage with that. I'd spend a lot of time making sure that I understand the budget, and I know that you do too. So I know that you know the answer to that is yes, you've seen a balance sheet.
Mr. Knopfler, would you like to respond?
I would invite Councilor Burnett after this production to show me within our budget documents where we are projecting a budget for the next year. Are there balance sheets floating around? Yes, but the question was vis-a-vis the budgeting process. And where in budgeting are they giving us a projected balance sheet?
Ted, in the budget, you have to come up with things. Obviously, you need to understand, you need to project your revenues and you need to project your expenses, and then you go back to your balance sheet. So the balance sheet aspect of it comes after the revenue projections and expenses. It's there, it's in the process. Pay attention.
And now to Mr. Green. Would you like me to repeat the original question?
Please do, because I need to respond to my original question. So,
Mr. Burnett, you should have done that originally. I told you you have the full 2.5 minutes at the time that you stopped.
okay.
Mr. Green, the City Council has been accused of over-complicating the budget process on purpose to disguise unfair methods and tax increases. Do you support this assumption or this characterization? And would you support simplifying the budget process?
No and yes.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
All right, we have 2 more audience questions. Our next one is from Ashley Boyd.
Hey, how you doing? Can you guys hear me? Can
Yes.
you hear me well?
Yes, speak up a little bit though.
All right. Gun traffic congestion has been an important issue lately in Port Orange. If you were elected mayor, what would you do about it?
We'll start with Mr. Green.
That is a big issue. And it has to do with, obviously, the west side development that we've incurred. We only have so much space under our 95, and that